Welcome to Take a Breath, a podcast for creating practical calm in the messy middle of midlife. I'm Polly, and this is your space to pause. Because life in midlife is full on, between work, family, menopause, and the mental load, your nervous system can easily end up in constant overdrive, leaving you feeling exhausted, reactive, and overwhelmed by even the smallest things. Each week, I'll share my own tools alongside honest conversations and practical nervous system support to help you create more calm, peace, joy, and inner steadiness. So whenever you're ready, let's take a breath in through the nose, feel your belly rise, your ribs expand, and as you exhale, let's begin. Hello and welcome back to Take a Breath. Now, this week's episode, I'm diving into a topic that affects so many of us, particularly at midlife, and that is our pelvic floor health. Now, this is something which perhaps we do talk about, but we often laugh about it. We joke about it. We might say, if you're really laughing that you've wet yourself a little bit, or that you can't jump on a trampoline anymore because you're going to wet yourself, or if you cough or you sneeze. And that's definitely me. And it is something which I am very aware of. I've kind of hung up my trampolining boots. But actually, according to this week's guest, Jana Shirley, that absolutely does not need to be the case. Anything can be reversed to a certain extent. So Jana is a pelvic floor and women's health specialist. She's got more than 21 years of experience, and she combines her experience of Pilates, of her therapeutic body work, of advanced anatomy knowledge, all of that to help women overcome chronic pain, pelvic floor dysfunction, and the physical challenges that we all know can arise, particularly during perimenopause and menopause. I really loved talking to Jana. She's helped so many women rebuild their trust in their bodies through movement, through breath, through nervous system regulation. In this conversation, Jana really challenges some of those myths around pelvic floor health, including that common belief that everyone simply just needs to be doing their pelvic floor exercises, doing more Kegels. And actually, she talks about how many people's pelvic floors are actually really, really tight, and it's more about a letting go. It really is a fascinating and empowering conversation that is going to help you better understand your body. She gives some practical exercises for us all to have a go at to support your pelvic floor, and really just appreciate just how connected everything is in our body, from our breath, our nervous system, to our jaw, our shoulders, and our pelvic health. So without further ado, please welcome the absolutely brilliant Jana Shirley. Jana, absolutely wonderful to meet you, and welcome to Take a Breath.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, we've got lots to cover. Now, to start with, Jana, could you just introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit more about you, what you do today, and then maybe we can hear about how you've come to be doing the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in the world of Pilates and remedial massage for the last 21 years, so for half of my life. I do feel it's my soul's purpose. I can't see myself doing anything else at all. And it's been a lovely journey from starting out to where I am now. So I mainly have a community of the most gorgeous women who are mainly perimenopausal and menopausal. And I've worked with them through their life phases. And what became very apparent is that through their life phases, there are different considerations for the pelvic floor. So in pregnancy, in birthing, in postnatal, and then massively underrated, not spoken about, completely taboo, are the changes that happen in perimenopause and menopause. And through working with my clients and seeing their issues because we talk about everything. It's made me realize how much we do need to communicate to the wider public, how important it is to feel empowered when it comes to your pelvic floor and your core, definitely.
So I straight away have got some questions to you
Okay.
about your pelvic floor, because I think it's been so normalized at our age. So I'm 52, and I know, since I know I've got 3 children, I had them all in my 30s. And I know amongst my friends and myself, it's been so normalized that if you laugh a lot, or if you sneeze, or if you cough, then actually it's actually quite normal that you can slightly wet
Have a
yourself.
leak. Yes, yeah, it has been normalized, hasn't it? And I feel like it's become very accepted. But the things that just because something is common doesn't mean that we then need to accept it as a given.
Mhm.
Something that's common doesn't mean that it is normal for you, and that you have to accept it. In many, many cases, there are many things that you can do, and it's getting to the root. It's being able to ask, like for practitioners, to be able to ask the right questions, so that we can get to the root cause of what's going on for that lady, because there might be two ladies could walk in. Lady one could be leaking when she sneezes. Lady two could be leaking when she sneezes, but there's two very different reasons for that. And there are some very clear questions that can be asked. And at the moment, I feel like it's really important, if the practitioners are not asking these questions, that the wider public know to ask the practitioner and to go and seek the right advice for themselves, because there's perhaps a lot of stuff that's been brushed under the carpet.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, isn't it? It's kind of normalized, but also there is a little bit of embarrassment about
Mhm.
it. You know, it is something that you think, oh, it's okay, I can kind of get through this. You said there might be two very different issues going on
Yeah.
here. Now, I know that, we all, I think, particularly if you've had children, are aware of, we need to keep our pelvic floor strong. But that's only just part of it, isn't it? So what are some of these different issues that we need to be looking out for?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because you said like you feel like you know that your pelvic floor should be strong. And so if you feel that your pelvic floor should be strong, what, sorry to just give you the question back, but what do you feel? So I'm just really interested. What do you feel is the normal solution given to you when they say, right, you must keep your pelvic floor strong? What would that mean for you? What do you think there's like a certain, have you been told that there's a certain exercise or a certain movement that you must be doing, that all ladies must be doing, or?
Well, I mean, for me, I suppose it's, I know that in terms of breathing about the pelvic floor, in terms of how it contracts and
Oh,
how
of
it
course.
relaxes.
Yeah,
So I know
you
that
do. Yeah.
it needs to relax as well as contract. But I, for so many years, was just thinking that it just needed to contract, and that, the one thing we're all taught to do after a
Yes,
baby is to do our
you're
Kegels,
absolutely right.
and actually, you know a
Yes.
lot of us are holding on all the time, aren't we? Rather than actually letting go.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. I was really curious to sort of see, like what you thought about strength, because most times we are told keep your pelvic floor strong, therefore you must go home and do all of these Kegels, these isolated squeezes of the pelvic floor, and that is only part of the story. So there are different concerns when it comes to the pelvic floor and things to look out for. So if you are leaking, for example, if we take that as an example, if we are leaking
Mhm.
when we cough, sneeze, or laugh, that pelvic floor, it could be weak. It could need some pelvic floor Kegels to get started, and then take you into more functional movements, because the time when you need to lift up on the pelvic floor is not normally in a very controlled scenario. It's normally when we are on the move, lifting something up in an awkward position. So we do need to take those Kegels on to something that's a little bit more of a functional movement. However, a lady could be leaking when she laughs and coughs and sneezes because her pelvic floor is chronically tight. So whether your pelvic floor is chronically tight or on the weaker side, they both have that same symptom, but I think that widely it's kind of thought of that your pelvic floor must be weak.
Yes.
So the lady who does her Kegels diligently when her pelvic floor is tight may actually feel worse symptoms for doing it. So if anybody's listening to this and nodding their head like, oh my gosh, that's me. I was feeling like I was leaking. And so I was doing all these Kegels and actually I just felt more discomfort. I was leaking more. I felt worse. That is a sign or a symptom that that lady's pelvic floor may be chronically tight. And so without doing an internal pelvic health assessment, what ladies can ask themselves is, if I was to sit and just get my bony sit bones, so you know those two bones, if you were to sit on a hard surface, how you'd feel those two knobbles underneath you, those are your two sit bones, and your pelvic floor spans out onto to those two sit bones. So I'm just showing Polly my model. My pelvic floor.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
And then, so you've separated your two sit bones away from each other. And then if you allow yourself maybe to close your eyes down and take a deep breath. So we're inhaling and taking that breath, if we can, down into the belly, down into the bowl of the pelvis, widening those sit bones. There's no pressure downwards, it's more about width. And then as you exhale, we're just staying soft, not asking you to do any lifts at the moment. So when some ladies do that, they will feel like their breath can go all the way down. And you might even get bearing down sensation. And there's that feeling of like, oh, it's just going and going and going. And I don't have much sensation of being able to rise back up again with the pelvic floor. That lady, this is part of an assessment. It's not the whole picture, but I would be looking towards, okay, I'll ask further questions because their pelvic floor might be on the weaker side. Whereas some ladies will come in and you will most likely, I bet you'll see this in your clinic, where they'll take a breath and they just can't get past the ribs. They can't get down. They can't expand the belly. They certainly can't widen their sit bones and let their pelvic floor relax because that's not how they've lived for years. Their shoulders have been up near the ears all the time. Shoulder pain, jaw pain, headaches, that kind of thing, because their breath has been up here and their diaphragm, which is your breathing muscle umbrella, works with that pelvic floor. And if your diaphragm's up near your ears, so will your pelvic floor be. And that pelvic floor can be pressing on that poor bladder all day long. And there's just nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. So when you cough, sneeze, or laugh, you can get a leak for that because of the pressure that's sort of mismanaged. So hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity. Obviously there are nuances and there are further assessments there, but just as a little bit of I just want ladies that listen to this to be able to like walk away and be able to go, do you know what, I actually feel a bit more clued up on my own pelvic floor and the steps that I might take next in order to be able to resolve some issues, because there is a lot that ladies can do.
So this is important, I think, because I think a lot of us think that, okay, I'm 52. This has been happening for a few years now. That's that, and it's only going to just either stay the same or get worse. Can we reverse these sorts of issues? I will only ever recommend brands that I know, love, and use myself. And one of those is Ancient and Brave. Honestly, they've become part of my daily habits. The very first thing I do every morning is pour myself a big glass of water with their true hydration in it. It feels like such a simple ritual, but it really sets me up for the day. And I know I'm properly rehydrating with their blend of electrolytes and minerals, especially before I exercise, which I always do in the morning. Then later on, when I make my coffee, I stir in their true collagen powder into the coffee. Now, it blends in straight away, no fuss, there's no taste, and collagen is something we naturally lose as we age, but it's so important for our skin, joints, and overall vitality. Now, I'll be honest, Ancient and Brave may cost a little more than some of the tubs you'll spot on supermarket shelves, but the difference is you're getting the highest quality ingredients, sourced with integrity and tested to a higher standard, and absolutely no nasties added. That's why I trust them and why I think they're worth every penny. And because I want you to be able to try them out for yourself, I've got a special offer for you. As a listener of this podcast, you can get 20% off your very first order. All you need to do is click the link in the show notes and pop in the code POLYW20 at checkout. They've got more than just collagen and hydration too. They've got creatine, they've got blends, supplements. So it's a perfect chance to explore their range and make the most of that 20% off.
Yeah, this is nuanced, so I don't want to be, alarmist and be like, oh, 100% yes, because there are different, every lady is unique. But that said, there is so much that you can do. There is no glass ceiling to the capacity to be able to heal and be able to progress. For example, one of my lovely ladies, she's going to be 70 next year. She just left me a voice note this morning on WhatsApp. She's just completed the 4-week ab rehab Pilates online course I offer. She's just left me a voice note and she said, Jana, I am certainly wearing less pads. She used to go through so many pads in a day. She's like, I am certainly wearing less pads. And when I cough, when I sneeze, I'm not leaking. She's done that in 4 weeks.
Amazing.
Next year, and she's thought that was just the way that it was, and that doesn't have to be her story. And I just hear that time and time and time again with my ladies. There's always something that you can do. Even when it comes to things like that sense of heaviness, maybe being diagnosed with a prolapse. There are 4 stages of a prolapse, and at stage 4, the consultant would be talking about surgical procedures. But leading up to that, there is always something that you can do. And indeed, what the research has been showing, and indeed what is being shown in my clinic as well, is that stage 1 and 2, if you're working diligently with functional exercises, which means releasing and breathing, as well as gathering and lifting whilst you're doing your strength movements, you can reverse a stage 1 and a stage 2. I think with stage 2 you have to be quite diligent with your exercises. The gold standard clinical trials have shown that if a lady can do her functional exercises for 20 minutes up to 4 times a week, there are leaps and bounds in progress, and that's what my program is based on, an optimal of 4 times a week for 20 minutes each time, if that's possible. And I have found that with a lot of my ladies, whether they are mums in the mix of family life and working and things like that, that they can still find 20 minutes when they come to understand that their self-care is I call it a non-negotiable. If you feel better, everybody else benefits. There's like this positive ripple effect. I find that when my ladies come to me, that when they come into me, they're probably like at the end of their tether, and they know they need to do something. So that might be one of the reasons why they are so diligent at going, actually I've reached a point.
Yeah,
and I need to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. Nothing, if something is going to really work, we have to be consistent about it. It's like anything, these days it's very hard to get a quick fix overnight if you want long lasting results ultimately. So it is about finding that time for yourself. I do love, Jana, how you talk about you're a great believer in the fact that the body can heal itself. And I truly believe this as well, that if we give the body the correct conditions, then it's so brilliant at healing itself. And so this obviously is what you do as well, in terms of giving women the right tools, the right conditions in order to heal themselves. And a big part of that is to do with calm, with working with the nervous system as against it. So I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
Definitely. And this is what intrigued me about the work that you do, because increasingly I find that actually if we can get a lady into the calm arm of her nervous system, the more progression she has. And I find that mind blowing, because aren't we always told to push more, do more, be more? And like that, well, that was definitely, I think, my conditioning anyway. Try your best, be your best, do everything. And actually, what I've found is that the ladies that progress the most are the ones who are allowing themselves that space and time to be able to do less, breathe more fully, find that still point. And from there, it's like their alignment and their strength and their progression just absolutely skyrockets. And like this still feels like it's relatively like new information in my industry, even as Pilates, and Pilates is fairly rehab focused. Yeah, I think that actually the more we can, yeah, find a still point, the more progressions I see, definitely.
And it makes sense, doesn't it? Because if we're in that side of our nervous system, if we're in our parasympathetic, our rest and to just digest, that
Yeah.
is where healing happens. It's not going to happen when
Yes.
it's preparing to fight or to run away, or it's just not. So
Yeah.
I think it's really
Yeah.
key for us to recognize that the more that we can calm, the more that we can slow down,
Mm.
as hard as that is in our
Yeah.
busy modern day life, the easier it is to heal.
Yes.
I've had a
Yeah.
really big fast track lesson of this these last 6 months. I hurt my knee skiing before Christmas and ended up having to have surgery on it. So for someone who is very active, and it's been, I mean, a big lesson. And I thought I was doing pretty
Mm.
well in terms of, looking after myself and
Yeah.
having quiet. But my goodness, I've had to really slow down, and it's made me realize
Mm.
how much I wasn't actually giving myself a lot of time and space
That's really
to be
interesting.
slow. Yeah. And I mean, I think it probably needed to happen for me to
Oh,
recognize that. I used to track everything, be on, yet still thinking I was actually
yeah.
doing lots of really good things for myself. This isn't about like being in Zen mode 100% of the time, because that is completely unrealistic for all of us. But what I think
Yeah.
we need to recognize, it's about having that flexibility. So it's about it's giving yourself the conditions that your nervous system can rest and recover when it's being stressed. It's about being able to turn it off
Yes.
so that you can heal and do all these things.
Yes.
And just, we probably need more time than we think we need to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so interesting in terms of like the tracking, because that is definitely something that is hot at the moment, to track everything. And there's a certain diligence about that. I've actually taken off my aura ring, so that's
Me
been
too.
yeah. Have
Yes.
you?
Well, I used to wear a root band. I've taken it off as well. Well, since my injury, because I was like, I don't want to watch my downfall. I'm like, but
Oh,
actually, I think I'm going to leave it off, because
yeah,
I'm enjoying not tracking and actually just tuning
yeah.
in more to actually how I
That's
am
it.
feeling.
That's it. I think there is going to be a little lean towards using our intuition a little
Mhm.
more. And I think to be able to use our intuition a little more, we do need to be able to be a little slower, in order to be able to pause and recognize. So I'm really sort of leaning into that at the moment. But I was thinking in terms of like, when you said about the getting into that parasympathetic zone, if we think about getting into that the rest and digest mode, that's when like inflammation starts to calm down. So that's a really important thing, I think, for ladies who are feeling that they have got things like pelvic pain, especially like if they've got pelvic pain and tightness going on. It's like actually there's by allowing myself to breathe deeper and go into that parasympathetic state, I'm actually giving myself, as a happy byproduct, lots and lots and lots of benefits. There are multiple benefits to actually giving myself that space and time. So I think that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
And also, I imagine, things like jaw, like a
Mm.
tight jaw,
Yeah.
tight shoulders, lower back pain, all of
Yes.
these, are related to that
Yeah.
that sort of feeling of being on all the time, and the moment that we can relax and let go a little bit, then we can
Yeah.
those pains will, I mean, from my experience, they really
Yes.
do soften.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we can actually track that as well in terms of the fascia, so the connective tissue. So our connective tissue is our collagen, elastin, and water. That substance is like a packing material through the whole body. So it innervates our muscles. It's around the organs, between the organs, and it's everything is connected from your big toe to your head. Everything is
Mm.
connected. And Thomas Meyer's work shows that the deep front line, where the connective tissue is in the jaw, goes down through the abdominals, through the pelvic floor, through the inner thighs, and all the way down to the arches of the feet. There is a direct relationship there. So, isn't it interesting when a lady comes in and she goes, "Oh my gosh, my jaw's really tight, my shoulders are up here." If you give that lady a pelvic floor release, like being sat on one of the air-filled Pilates mini balls,
Hmm.
um, being able to sit your pelvic floor on top of there so your bony sit bones can slope over the sides, and your pubic bone at the front is where the pelvic floor attaches at the front, and your coccyx, the bottom of your spine, is where it attaches at the back. So I call the pelvic floor like a diamond shape, basically,
Yeah.
allowing that diamond to widen over something like an air-filled mini ball, and being able to breathe deep. It is so fascinating. Me and my client call it magic every time, because you release the pelvic floor, you're releasing the connective tissue in part of the system, and it has this knock-on positive effect throughout the entire deep front line. So their jaw releases, the neck releases, the shoulders drop, they can breathe deeper, their inner thighs don't feel like they're clenching,
Yeah.
because everything is interconnected there. And I think that's something that's quite good for ladies to know as well, that if you do one thing of a positive input, that actually it does have this ripple effect of positivity across the body and across the nervous system. So it's not that you have to do all the things right here, right now. It's sometimes it can be a case of choose one thing.
Yes, one thing. Yeah, you just sometimes it is just one thing, and it can change a whole cascade of
Yes.
other things. Yeah, that's so good to know. So yes, I love that exercise. So on a Pilates ball, sit on that Pilates ball and just roll.
Yes.
And that could release. Oh, I'm going to try that. That
Yes,
sounds
I'll have to
lovely.
repost that on my social media actually, because it's one of the posts that always goes, everyone gets really interested. Like, what on earth is that lady doing? Um, and then they try it themselves and go, oh my gosh, I can take up so much more space. I can feel my breath better. I can, because I've released the pelvic floor, I can now activate it better.
So that's a really good practical exercise someone can do.
Mm,
Is there anything else in terms of you at the beginning you were talking about the breath, just to try and figure out whether your pelvic floor is
yeah,
tight or if it's loose. What are just some
yeah.
basic go-tos that we can have a go at, just to try and give our pelvic floor the best chance of supporting us?
Yeah, so I think that whether your pelvic floor is tight or whether it's weak, maybe if you're unsure, no matter which way, I think that being able to give yourself that feedback with that last exercise,
Mhm.
of finding your breath and allowing yourself to sit over the air-filled mini ball. If you don't have something like that, a great big cushion
Yeah.
could work. You want to be thinking about being able to kind of sort of drape the sit bones and the pubic bone and coccyx over the top, like of a dome
Okay.
shape,
Yeah.
basically. And I think that no matter who you are, you can benefit from bringing that awareness in, because if your pelvic floor is tight, it will allow you some space. And if your pelvic floor is weak, it's going to give you feedback, much needed feedback. Because some ladies might find that they can't quite feel that sense of lift. It's basically like waking up an area of your body that you might not have actually had much communication with before now. So that would be like my number one. Whoever you are, try that exercise. And then number two, in terms of, okay, well, when we've found a sense of release and a sense of space and our breath, how do we actually activate the pelvic floor? Because a lot of ladies are told to just squeeze. And that was one of the reasons as well that got me so into doing this, because when I had my little boy, he's 13 now, I distinctly remember the midwife handing me this sheet of paper that basically was like, squeeze your pelvic floor. And I thought, for a little second, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a Pilates instructor. And like, I want to make sure that I'm doing this right, because I've just birthed this baby. And like, I'm second guessing myself. So if I'm second guessing myself, what's all the women who have been pregnant feeling like? Because, and I say that in terms of like, you need to be able to have a functional pelvic floor, whether you've birthed vaginally or not, you know, so if you've had a C-section, because the weight of baby has been on that pelvic floor. So I was like, oh, I think I need more depth of knowledge here in terms of how to actually activate the pelvic floor well. So that would be my second exercise in terms of like, okay, let's make sure that we can actually activate well. So again, as you're sat there, if you have a little wiggle and let your sit bones separate out away from each other, and then what you could do is put your fingertips onto your pubic bone at the front. So it's that right where the pelvic floor will attach at the very front. So you'll feel like a bone, and then it will drop off to your pelvic floor. And then at the very bottom of your spine, you'll find your coccyx. And then plant both feet on the floor, so you've got a nice grounded base. And if you allow yourself to take that deep breath in and allow the bowl of the pelvis to widen, and visualize the pubic bone and the coccyx just gently coming away from each other as you breathe in. And now as you exhale, I'd like you to feel the pubic bone at the front and the coccyx at the back, and visualize those two bones gently drawing towards each other. Now, the space between those two bones is the pelvic floor. So even if this does not feel like a strong sensation at the moment, bear with it, because you are creating communication pathways between your brain and a muscle that you might not have thought of in this way before. So you're exhaling as you're thinking about pubic bone and coccyx drawing towards each other. Now, that space between the pelvic floor, I want you to visualize that space between the pubic bone and coccyx gently rising up. So it's a gathering effect. And then as you inhale, allow yourself to relax once again. So your sit bones widen, your belly softens. You can even hopefully start to sense the breath can open up into your back as well. And as you exhale, visualize pubic bone and coccyx drawing towards each other, and the entire space gathering and lifting. And it's actually way more gentle than the word squeeze. I often use a visualization of like a jellyfish. So if you've ever seen a jellyfish in like Sea Life Centre, they've got that 360 diameter, and it all opens, and then as it closes, it gently glides through the water. So I think of the inhale as the open and the exhale as the gathering and the drawing up and floating off. So it's much more serene than a squeeze.
Yes, that's so much more serene than a squeeze, and much more enjoyable. Yes. You know, when you're breathing in that way, because obviously it's working in sync with your diaphragm movement as you're breathing in and as you're exhaling. So it's a really it's like a really lovely flowy sort of movement, which feels relaxing in itself.
And that becomes the foundation. So I always tell my ladies to exhale on exertion. So if they're rising up out of a squat, they are exhaling on that exertion. They are rising up through their pelvic floor as they're doing so. You know, any of the lower abdominal exercises where you're laid on your back, and you might have seen, on social media, like legs lengthening away whilst they're laid on their back. That's like a classical lower ab series from Pilates. We want to be thinking about exhaling on the exertion, on the hardest bit of the exercise. And as you exhale, you've got this gathering up of the entire pelvic floor. What they know through muscle readers is that if we can start the exhale and start the sensation of gathering through the pelvic floor a 20th of a second before that limb goes, you've kind of set your deep intrinsic core stabilizers to stabilize you. You've got your pelvic floor activated and stabilizing and working for you before that leg's gone too far. And I think of that like when you're using weights and stuff as well. It's like if you're about to pick up that heavy laundry basket or set of weights in the gym, as you're about to pick them up, we're thinking about, I'm about to exhale, I'm about to lift the entire pelvic floor, and here we go, lifting up away from gravity.
And also, when you breathe
Yeah.
in, you will have got some sort of structure in that inner core.
Structure, yeah.
And
Yeah,
then you will have, when you exhale, you've got that sort of gathering. So
yeah. Because at most times, and again, there are nuances and things that can make this less obvious or not fire up for some ladies, but in most instances, as you exhale and gather up through the entire pelvic floor, the lower abdominals gently start to draw in at the same time because they work in conjunction with each other. There might be circumstances like abdominal surgery, where the tissues have been cut through and things like that, where we might need to reteach that pattern to begin with. But a lot of the times I'll ask my ladies to put their hands like on their lower abdominals, like underneath the belly button, and as they take that deep breath in to prepare and feel like the belly is soft and the pelvic floor is wide, and then as they exhale and gather through the entire pelvic floor with your hands underneath your belly button, most times if they are gathering up through the pelvic floor, they'll also feel their lower abdominals gently draw in. It's like that corset of support. And that can be relearned if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh, I've had like abdominal surgeries or I've had C-sections and I don't feel that. It is teachable. And the more you get into communication with your body, the more that you get the firing patterns start to build. It's the little and often being consistent with the exercises and starting with a foundation and gently building yourself up rather than going to that level 10 exercises too quickly.
Are a lot of the exercises that you teach, are they Pilates based exercises?
Yeah, they are Pilates based. So I'm a level 5 sports massage therapist and qualified in the rehabilitation as well. So there are exercises that if they're right for that person, if they're indicated for that person, I will also and also within the online series as well, if it's indicated, I will put in some rehab exercises that come more from like the world of physio that marries very well with Pilates. But I always say to my ladies that once you've got your foundation, that Pilates foundation, you'll find yourself doing whatever movement, whether you prefer CrossFit at the end of the day or whatever it is that you prefer, you'll always have that sort of Pilates mindset of how to do it, exhaling on exertion, using your alignment, using your breath well. So you can really sort of track a lot of my exercises back to a Pilates foundation, and then you can excel from there really and take it wherever it is you want to go.
Yeah, really good habits to get into, because you got into Pilates when you had your own back issues. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was I've always danced, and since I can remember as a teenager, had like chronic low back pain, and it was like, and we did sort of get it investigated a couple of times, and it was like, oh, that's just her posture, that's just the way that she is, like I didn't think that it was something that, like, I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm born with a spine that is that shape, so that's why I feel the way that I feel, and that was very much what I was being told and what my mum was being told about my back. So I just kind of like accepted that is how it is. And then when I went to uni to do dance, Pilates was part of the course. It was part of the conditioning, and you can imagine like a bunch of like 18-year-olds, and Pilates wasn't cool back then like it is now. And then, of going into this room with all the Pilates reformers and be like, oh gosh, what is this slow equipment that you add springs to? Like, what is this? But then it's part of the course, so we tried it out, and then I was like, oh, I'm feeling so much better. And my back has not been an issue at all, but that's because I think that it was part of the course, so that I was doing it most days. And so the results came quite quickly, and I've never ever looked back. And I think that is why I've spent half my life now teaching Pilates, because it made me feel so good that I wanted to like share that with the world.
Yes, anybody with a bad back, which again is very common, and I
Mm,
think perimenopause, menopause, stiff
mhm.
joints, and achy
Yeah.
joints, that can be really helpful. So I'm not surprised that there's this boom at the moment in Pilates because
Yeah.
people are discovering how useful it can be.
Yeah, definitely, because there's no impact there. But as you progress through the foundations, you can start to add resistance. And that is what is so important in perimenopause and menopause. We need to be able to try and keep our bone density as much as we can. We need to be able to keep our joints as juicy as we can. With estrogen declining, that can have a major impact on joints. So we need to use movement as our buffer for the joints. As estrogen declines, we can't get away with not moving our bodies, I do
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was in my early 40s, I was doing a load of run. I mean, I was mainly running. That was
Mm,
my exercise. And I then, oh goodness, I had some terrible back issues. And I think, I have actually never been for a bone density scan, but having seen specialists and, I was told that, base of my spine, some of those L4 or L5 were beginning to crumble. Basically, they got to the point where they were suggesting that I might need surgery. And I was like, I'm not having surgery. There's no way I'm doing that. So I joined a strength gym, and I started properly weightlifting. I started you really mobilizing my body better. But it was the strength. And
yeah,
I remember it was hard at the time because it was very painful. Touch
yeah.
wood, I have not had any issues since at all. And it was a
That's
real lesson in like
amazing.
this.
That's
Yeah,
so good.
you can rebuild that strength. And
Yeah,
yeah, and it's one thing I'm it's a non-negotiable now. It's absolutely something I know is
yeah,
so important.
yeah, yeah. You've got a support system in place for your spine.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, Jana, so if anyone wants to come and
Yeah,
find out how they can work with you, so I know you've got some online courses. I know you've got also a community.
yeah,
Can you just tell us a little bit about how we could work with
yeah.
you?
Yeah, so the community is widespread now due to being online, which came about because of COVID. Like, so I just had my bricks
Yeah.
and mortar before then. And we, we were like, we need to keep this community going through the lockdowns. And that's when we started doing our Zooms. And then my brain loves to work in progressive series when it comes to movement. And so it was very quickly, I was like, right, well, I'm going to video a whole series so that you can, because a lot of the ladies that I work with have issues like chronic pain, we can't jump from level 1 to level 10. We need to make this incremental.
Mhm.
So then that's when the series came about. So there's a monthly series and it's still to this day, it's like booming still. And there's ladies as far as Australia actually that are, that are in online with me, and we have a monthly theme. And the videos, I aim for them to be around 20 minutes each, and it's slowly progressive through the month. And they can do that anytime, anywhere, at the press of a button. And then we can optional. They can meet up with us on the Zooms a couple of times a month. We have our Facebook group. So I think that's really important to have that loving accountability, that cheerleading. They're so lovely to each other. So that's the online element. I've also got the ab rehab program online as well, which some ladies might prefer the way to be able to have access to a single program and just keep that access. It's a one-off
Mhm.
uh, package that they keep forever, so they can revisit it as often as they want. And then in person, I'm mainly here in my massage room, most days a week, most hours, working one-to-one with clients. And then I do also have a couple of in-person classes a week. And this year I started doing abroad retreats. So we went to Portugal earlier on this year,
Lovely.
and it was a dream come true. And I knew before we left, I have to do this all over again. So, so the retreat in Portugal for May of next year is underway, and I literally pressed go on it, I think yesterday. So today is really interesting because every time I go into my inbox, another lady is coming along.
Great. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, well, I'm going to put all of your details, I'll put them in the show notes. If anyone wants to come
Oh,
along and check you out, they can go and have a look there.
yes.
Um, thank you. It's been great. Is there anything I've
Oh.
missed which you feel that listeners should know before we wrap up?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot actually in a short space of time, and hopefully some very actionable tips that ladies can do right here and right now, and
Yeah.
hopefully sparked a few questions that they might be able to go forwards. Like if they are having issues, to be able to seek out a practitioner and be able to ask quite like well-informed questions actually,
Yeah,
so they can
absolutely.
get the help they need.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think it's just so fascinating how it is, how the pelvic floor is linked to the rest of our
Mm,
bodies. And it's something that we, really, the more awareness we've got, it's like with anything, the more awareness we have of it, then
yeah.
the more we can do to support and help
Yeah.
ourselves. So thank you so much.
Thank you for
It's been
having
really
me. Thank you
fantastic.
so
My
much.
pleasure. Oh, my pleasure. Before you go, just to let you know that you'll find a selection of gentle, practical offers at really accessible prices over on my website. They're all designed to support your everyday breathing, to ease anxiety, and help you build a more resilient, flexible nervous system so you can feel calmer and bring a little more steadiness into your daily life. Everything I share is designed to meet you where you are and to fit into real busy lives. Just go to hollywarren.com and click on the resource library. If you'd like to stay connected between episodes, you can also find me over on Instagram at Polly Warren Coaching. This is where I share simple reminders and tools and reflections to help you come back to calm throughout the week. And if you're enjoying Take a Breath, it would mean so much if you could take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It really does help this podcast reach more women who might need a little space to breathe too. Thank you so much for being here and for taking this time for yourself. And remember, sometimes all you need to do is take a breath.